Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, Jon Herold. Happy Monday. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Lots of news to go through, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it as quickly as we can, but it will be as informationally packed as possible. So before we get into it, let's get a quick word from our sponsor of today's show, Save Pulse. Today's show is sponsored by Save Pulse, formerly known as EasyRx. Save Pulse, we're committed to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and more. Our ordering process is streamlined for your convenience. We pride ourselves on offering unbeatable prices. Now's the time to prepare for any health scenario. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/meds to stock up on essential antibiotics and viral care medications. Ensure you're ready for anything by visiting badlandsmedia.tv/meds. And don't forget to use promo code BADLANDS at checkout to get a 10% discount on orders over $150 or more. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use promo code BADLANDS to save on your health essentials today. Also want to give one quick shout out to Loaded Gun Coffee. It's my coffee of choice. It's what I drink pretty much all throughout the day. Love their coffee, guys. You got to try it. They got a new one, Redneck Roast. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/loaded. Use promo code Badlands for 10% off. You all know you're drinking coffee anyway. You might as well support Badlands while you're doing it. We got trade wars to talk about. We got the USAID situation to talk about. We got a couple stories kind of around the Grammys, just how ridiculous it was. We got some other geopolitics, Panama Canal update. What else? I got a lot. I got like 50 tabs open, so we shall cruise through them. Let me show you this first. We got an update from ICE. This is the most recent information we got on the 30th and the 31st. The totals for arrests now are 7,314. Detainers lodged 5,717. There has been some protests around the country going on. I didn't pull any links up to show you that or anything, but there are people protesting the deportation, and I don't think that's going to end well. I also saw this is pretty funny. I will pull this up if I can get to it quick. Governor Murphy of New Jersey, he admitted to housing an illegal alien, like harboring a fugitive, essentially. Check this out.
We're talking about, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point that they are trying to get it to. And we said, you know what, let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming in to try to get her.
And if you guys remember, Tom Homan, he basically said if there are elected officials in this country that are harboring fugitives or, sanctuary cities allowing this stuff, if they're interdicting in our deportation process, we'll arrest them. We'll do it. And this guy just advertised and broadcast to the world that he's got one in his house. So I hope Tom Homan shows up personally with a SWAT team and not only removes that individual, but also arrests Governor Murphy, because it would be hilarious to see. We got quite a few executive actions to go through as well, including some rumored ones. But this one, I'm not going to talk a lot about this on this show because we discussed it a lot on Saturday's Power Hour. But it's limiting the lame duck collective bargaining agreements that improperly attempt to constrain the new president. Essentially, Trump came in there. Actually, before Trump was coming in, the Biden administration was signing a lot of these CBAs to lock in employment contracts throughout president's term. Some of these with the Department of Education. I think I saw the Social Security Administration. I don't know, on Saturday's Power, we found like 4 or 5 of them. A lot of them were like telework stuff. Like, we won't make you come back to work, which is what DOGE and Trump has said they're going to do, is make these people come back to work. Trump, with this executive order, said any of those agreements within 30 days of the inauguration of a new president, you can't do it. Anyone that came 30 days prior to him being inaugurated is null and void. And moving forward in the future, no president can sign these CBAs when a new president is coming in. So that's all the details that go on that. If you want a much more detailed discussion, go check out Saturday's Power Hour. It was a good one. But the biggie from the last couple days, I would say, is the tariff war that's been going on. I think it was Saturday, Trump put out a Truth Social post. He's been saying he's going to do these tariffs, and he sure did. He said he implemented them. Today, I've implemented a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, 10% on Canadian energy, and a 10% additional tariff on China. This was done through the IEEPA because of the major threat, illegal aliens and deadly drugs killing our citizens, including fentanyl. We need to protect Americans, and it is my duty as president to ensure the safety of all. I made a promise on my campaign to stop the flood of illegal aliens and drugs from pouring across our borders, and Americans overwhelmingly voted for it. There are actually 3 executive actions on this. There's one for the northern border. And prior to today, there was just this one on here. And actually on the previous page, like where you select which one you want to go to, it said national. I posted about there was something wrong here and they fixed it. So it's correct now. But that doesn't really matter. There's this one, the southern border, and then there's the Republic of China. And so we're going to go through each of these, not the orders themselves, but the stories around them. So starting with the Canadian border, Trudeau came out, and we played this on Saturday too. I won't play the whole thing, but this is what Trudeau had to said in response to Trump implementing tariffs on Canada.
Unfortunately, the actions taken today by the White House split us apart instead of bringing us together. Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
So he says, we're going to tariff you back. This is the trade war, okay?
This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Ce soir.
Remember what Trudeau did not long ago? And that's what's so interesting about this entire situation. He resigned, or said he was resigning. Somehow he's still the prime minister, even though he resigned. I don't even know when he's officially gone. I should have looked that up. But in doing so, in resigning, somehow the Parliament of Canada dissolved or something. Again, I'm totally probably butchering this. I just know the theme of what's happening here. He's resigning. He still has power, though. The Congress, or whatever you call them, from Congress, or from Canada, Congress, I like that. The Canadian Congress, they're not there. They dissolved. And so he has more power than he normally would if he wasn't resigning. And this is how he's fighting back. And the Canadian people don't really have a say, not that they do anyway, because their elections there don't matter. They don't matter anywhere. But that's what I find so interesting about this, is his response. And it goes on here to list some of the goods. This is just so funny.
Tariffs. Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes.
All right, we do got a little breaking news. So I'm gonna jump to this. Actually, no, I'll just finish this. We got this from British Columbia Premier David Elby.
For our first of many steps, effective today, I have directed BC liquor sales to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states. Liquor store employees will be removing the most popular of these brands from government store shelves.
So British Columbia, they're trying to punish red states, people who voted for Trump. That's their thought process here. This is going to backfire on them in the best way possible, I think, especially after what we saw with Mexico, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But doing this, like just specifically targeting red states, thinking you are going to punish his voters and maybe bleed him of voters or something. Since when has going after Trump or Trump supporters directly ever worked in anybody's favor? All it does is make them stronger and more emboldened in their support of Trump. It's going to backfire spectacularly. I'm very curious to see how it does so. Trump also posted this: Canada doesn't even allow U.S. banks to open or do business there. What's that all about? Many such things, but it's also a drug war, and hundreds of thousands of people have died in the U.S. from drugs pouring through borders of Mexico and Canada. Just spoke to Justin Trudeau. We'll be speaking to him again at 3 p.m. So that was this morning. Trump has another call with Trudeau at 3 p.m. Curious to see how that goes because of how things went down with Mexico, which I'm going to get to in a second. But one of the last stories I was going to get to today is there was a rumor, it's now confirmed, that Trump was going to be signing an executive order to implement a sovereign wealth fund. And it looks like Carolyn Levitt just posted this right before we went live. Happening now, President Trump signs an executive order calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. And Trump hinted at this back on the campaign trail. I'll read you. This is from an article from September 2024. Sovereign wealth funds are national investment funds that operate separately from central banks and finance ministries. They generally aim to take trade surpluses and invest the money in potentially risky asset classes that could generate high returns. There are more than 100 sovereign wealth funds around the world with combined assets worth over $10 trillion. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, China, and Norway have some of the largest funds in the world. Those funds invest in areas such as infrastructure and technology, often playing constructive roles in financing. The former president suggested that the United States should have a fund to invest in national development projects such as highways, airports, manufacturing hubs, and medical research. He said the fund would generate so much profit that it would help pay down the national debt. Very interesting. He also said, again, this is months before the election even, so who knows where the thought process on this is now. But he said the investment vehicle would be funded with income collected from new tariffs that Mr. Trump plans to impose on imports. He did not say who would run the fund, but that it would be advised by some of the financiers he was speaking to, including the billionaire investor John Paulson. Paulson is actually one of his campaign advisors. But yeah, I very curious to see what the details of this executive order once it gets up on the website. Maybe by the end of the show, it'll be there. The tariff thing is interesting, using tariffs to fund it, because so far Trump has threatened a few tariff situations. We had the Colombia situation that resolved very quickly. He did implement these tariffs on Canada and China and Mexico, but I'm going to talk to you about the Mexico one in a second because it's been paused. And so far there's a theme kind of forming of implement tariff, talk to the leader. The reason for implementing the tariff is rescinded, or it's paused. It's like was it Roosevelt? Speak softly and carry a big stick. It's like big stick diplomacy right now. Trump is tweeting softly but carrying a big stick because he says he's going to do it. People don't take him seriously, and then he does it, and the country's like, oh crap. Okay, never mind. We'll do whatever you say. They bend the knee. Trump is not afraid to use his big stick. No pun intended, or pun intended too. It doesn't matter. The way he's doing this, it's been brilliant. So like if he keeps doing this and gets what he wants from these countries every single time he implements a tariff, are we going to even have tariff income? Again, it's stupid. It's too early to tell. Maybe we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Canada and China, because the 10% on China, that one probably, if there's any that had the best chance of sticking, it's probably that one based on what he did in his first term. But yeah, very, very interesting and peculiar. But yeah, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's happening. Allegedly. Very excited to read through that executive order. All right, let's go to the southern border now, because that's Mexico. This is one that got resolved pretty quickly. I would say this morning, 10:41 a.m., about an hour and a half ago, I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. And by the way, they were threatening to tariff the United States back, just like Canada was. We were going to have a multinational trade war, Canada and Mexico. But Trump spoke to the president. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal immigrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. So again, implements tariffs, swings that big stick like he said he was going to. Mexico backs down, does exactly what Trump wants, and now the tariffs are on pause. And the president of Mexico confirmed it. And by the way, again, keep in mind, Trump is speaking with Trudeau later this afternoon. After successfully getting Mexico to back down, I wonder if he's going to get Canada and Trudeau to do the same thing. But this is what the president of Mexico had to say. We had a good conversation with President Trump with great respect for our relationship and sovereignty. We reached a series of agreements. Mexico will immediately reinforce the northern border with 10,000 members of the National Guard to prevent drug trafficking. The United States is committed to working to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Our teams will begin working today on two fronts, security and trade. So what does Mexico really get out of this deal, though? Because Mexico is putting troops at the border to help us with our goal of preventing illegal immigration. And they're just not getting tariffed, which, I mean, that's good for them. But did they really get anything else stopping high-powered weapons? Yeah, Trump doesn't want high-powered weapons to go down there anyway. Trump's planning to and attempting to take out the cartels who use those high-powered weapons. So that's, I mean, we're on the same page there. Just very interesting. I would love to be a fly on the wall when Trump is on the phone with one of these foreign leaders discussing trade. It'd be so funny. But in the wake of the tariffs being implemented over the weekend, the markets were kind of going down a little bit. Bitcoin went down. I mean, Bitcoin went down by a fair amount. Pretty much everything went down. But in the wake of just the Mexico one being, turned around, we have the peso surging, treasury yields are rising, oil prices are going back down, erasing the overnight tariff-driven gains. Bitcoin is ripping back up again. U.S. equities are reversing the large losses overnight quite rapidly. So you guys are going to have to keep tabs, and this is not financial advice or investment advice, but keep tabs on these tariffs, because when in the days up to the tariffs, maybe sell, wait for the tariffs to get implemented and everything crash, and then buy the dip, because they're going to come back up once Trump gets what he's wanting anyway. So again, not financial advice, just interesting trend to keep your eyes on. And then this is the biggie, in my opinion, because we haven't really had a clear insight into how Trump plans on handling things with China. And he's starting with these 10% tariffs, and these are pretty broad, I believe. All articles that are products of the PRC are subject to an additional 10% ad valorem rate of duty. Should the PRC retaliate against the United States in response to this action through import duties on United States exports to the PRC or similar measures, the president may increase or expand in scope the duties imposed under this executive order to ensure the efficacy of this action. Yeah, curious to see how China responds, and just generally how this situation is going to be handled. We know in Trump's first administration, Trump kind of started the trade war with them, right? He implemented some of the biggest tariffs I think our country's ever imposed on them, if I'm not mistaken. And then days after the trade deal, right? The trade deal with China, it was when the first patient from wherever they came from landed. I'll use language appropriate not to get booted off of YouTube. But that's when we had a worldwide pandemic in the very short aftermath of that trade deal being signed. So yeah, we'll keep tabs on this. Some more world news, though, and this is where it gets even more interesting, is this is what Rubio said. I think this was this morning, talking about some of these other countries, some of these BRICS nations, and how they're basically de-dollarizing and what that means for us.
Today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them. Today.
And that's the whole point, the whole reason BRICS was started. It's the whole reason we failed so spectacularly in the Ukraine war. I mean, there's lots of reasons for the Ukraine war. There's deeper theories and everything behind it. But if you look at what Russia did, they de-dollarized and basically sanction-proofed themselves from the United States. And so the threat of more tariffs and sanctions and all these things, it didn't have the effect it used to back in the early 2000s or before. Like when as these countries are going away from the dollar, they're sanction-proofing their countries from us. And then what do? And that's why I'm so curious to see how Trump handles some of this with some of these other countries, because they are the ones that they don't necessarily need us as much as we like to think. And sanctions might not, and tariffs might not carry as much weight as they used to. So we'll see. Very excited to see how that plays out. But also speaking of Rubio, he was just down in Panama. We had this. Panama Secretary Rubio informed President Molino and Minister Martinez Acha that President Trump has made a preliminary determination that the current position of influence and control of the Chinese Communist Party over the Panama Canal area is a threat to the canal and represents a violation of the treaty concerning the permanent neutrality and operation of the Panama Canal. Secretary Rubio made clear that this status quo is unacceptable and that absent immediate changes, it would require the United States to take measures necessary to protect its right under the treaty. So again, probably threatening some sort of tariffs. I think what day was this? Yeah, this was yesterday. And then this morning or late last night, Panama's president pledges to end China development deal after meeting with Rubio. So Jose Raul Molino announced Sunday that his government will end a key development deal with China following a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and after President Trump raised concerns that Beijing had gained control over the country's vital shipping canal. I'm going to change that layout so it's a little bigger. He reaffirmed their sovereignty over 51-mile waterway. During the visit, Rubio posted on X that the United States cannot and will not allow the Chinese Communist Party to continue with its effective and growing control over the Panama Canal area. So Rubio gets down there. Who knows what they talk about or what he threatens to do, what the actions are if they don't fix this. And then the very next day, we have the Panama Canal ending their agreement with China, only benefiting us. And 72% of all the trade that goes through the canal, is to or from an American port. I mean, we're the majority ones doing the trade, but we were the ones paying more money than anybody to do it unfairly. So again, this is why I'm so curious to see how Trump handles the China situation and whether there are deeper theories going on there or not, if you watch some of our other shows. But this is not only is he implementing a 10% tariff, but he just took away the Panama Canal deal from him. And Trump is just not messing around. And then let's get into the next big story here. This is kind of going pretty viral. A lot of talk on this over the last couple of days on social media. The USAID, United States Agency for International Development. This is what Trump had to say about it.
What's going on?
Well, it's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
So that's what he said the other day. Over the weekend, it broke that the USAID website went completely offline. So there's this 2-week freeze. And there's a story that so the DOGE team, right? Elon Musk DOGE team tries to get in there and access some information. And certain people that were working there wouldn't let him in, wouldn't get him in. And so once they got access, they took the website down. I'm just going to read this story a little bit here. So Elon Musk shuts down USAID with Trump's approval hours after taking control of it and locks out 600 staffers overnight. Elon Musk and President Trump shut down the embattled government agency tasked with humanitarian relief overseas after they agreed the organization was beyond repair. So that's what they say they're doing, is just providing aid and humanitarian relief overseas. But is that really what they're doing? A lot of people are coming they're becoming aware of the USAID being essentially a CIA front. It's a deep state tool. Some of the stuff they're funding is absolutely insane, including prosecutors here domestically, the ones that were going after Trump. I mean, we'll get into some of the details of this probably in a future show when I'm trying to get Mike Benz to come on and join me and really lay it out for us. But I'm just going to give the broad strokes here. It became apparent that it's not an apple with a worm in it, Musk said of the 6-decade U.S. International Aid and Development Agency. What we have is just a ball of worms. You've got to basically get rid of the whole thing. It's beyond repair. As of 2016, USAID reported that it had 10,235 employees on its payroll. So I'm curious because it said 600 employees were locked out. So what about the other 9,600 of them? Anyway, imagine it managed more than $40 billion in appropriations in fiscal year 2023, which is less than 1% of the federal budget. By the way, this is the Daily Mail, so they're going to kind of downplay some of this, obviously. But 40 billion it's a lot of money going out there to fund a lot of bad activity, even if it does account for only 1% or less than 1% of our federal budget. We still have a lot of budgetary mess to clean up, but $40 billion is not insignificant. USAID AID provides development and assistance in about 130 countries with these funds. Let's see. For fiscal year, the president's budget request was $28.3 billion in foreign assistance. The USAID staffer said they tracked 600 employees who reported being locked out of the agency's computer systems overnight. So maybe it is more than that. Musk said USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die. There was a whole Spaces last night. I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but Elon Musk hosted a space. Joni Ernst was on it. She's been going after, some of this crazy funding for a while. I mean, a lot of our government officials say they've been going after this funding for a while, but somehow it never gets resolved. Vivek Ramaswamy was on there, which I kind of thought was interesting because he's no longer part of DOGE. He's rumored to go run for governor elsewhere in Ohio, but a lot of talk about a rift between him and Elon Musk. And they apparently still friends enough to do a Spaces together. Anyway, the message comes after the Trump administration placed 2 top security chiefs at USAID on leave after they refused to turn over classified material in restricted areas to Musk's government inspection teams, a U.S. official revealed on Sunday. Members of DOGE eventually did gain access Saturday to the aid agency's classified information, which includes intelligence reports. The former official said that, why does the USAID have intelligence reports if they're just giving money to people in need? If it's just humanitarian, like what kind of a humanitarian aid requires you to have like intel reports, classified ones at that? Just seems weird. But yeah, this sparked a whole big thing. People are saying CNN apocalypse at USAID as Musk and Trump work to dismantle the agency. And the left is doing their typical, cover for the establishment. Here's a pretty good exchange between Margaret Brennan and Representative Mast.
Purging of people throughout the State Department, other agencies, where we're freezing aid. These are all very important and necessary steps to make sure that we secure America, and we're going to support that.
I'm sorry, can I follow up on what you just said there? You want to authorize purging of State Department personnel? What does that mean exactly?
Well, if you want to take a look at the State Department, where DEI has been a priority over, let's say, diplomacy in many accounts, I could give you hundreds of examples of where they were authorizing. What proof do you have of that? Sure. Let's list them off. $500,000 to expand atheism in Nepal, $50,000 to do, a transgender opera in Colombia, $47,000 to do an LGBTQ trans comic book in Peru, $20,000 a pop to do drag shows in Ecuador. Shall I continue with more examples of where DEI was the priority?
It certainly seems like there could be a review of things. Foreign aid, as you know, is less than 1% of the entire federal budget. So we're talking small amounts of money by comparison. But
you see how she tries to downplay that? It's ridiculous. It's not surprising, because these people have nothing left. And who knows how much of this USAID money was going towards some of these media organizations. I mean, the web of the NGO world is expansive. And they're funding stuff like this all over. They're funding propaganda. Our government funds propaganda. And I think I have a story here later about how DOGE is requesting an interview with NPR and PBS, I think, the ones who are directly and openly admitted to being government funded, about what they're doing with the money and whatnot. We'll get to that in a little bit. But at some point, and I'm excited to get to the breaking point where the mainstream media can no longer justify actually covering for the regime and working against Trump's agenda, because it's clearly so well supported by everybody with a brain anyway. All this stuff is common sense, America first values. There's nothing to fight against here, but they're going to. Joni Ernst last night gave a great example of one of the things that we funded in the past or a couple things, is cats. They sent money to a place to put cats in a salon to see if they shed less or something ridiculous. And there's another one where they put a crab or something or a shrimp on a treadmill to see how fast they crawl. Like, why are we funding stuff like that? And that's just scratching the surface. Yet the media is going to try to justify it because it's only less than 1%. It's insane. And here's another one. This might get us kicked off of YouTube, but this is from Chief Nerd over on Twitter. Let me get this straight. Fauci's NIAID and the USAID sent over $40 million in U.S. taxpayer support to a scientist in Wuhan who is working on bat coronavirus emergence research, who also became patient zero for COVID-19. And the completion date for that funding was 2019. This document was obtained via FOIA by White Coat Waste. Give them a follow. And yeah, investigator Ben, who it says on here, NIAID, and USAID, $38 million. Eco Health Alliance. I mean, there's been a lot uncovered by that over the last few years, only more to come, but that is absolutely wild. Code Origin, WC or White Coat Waste investigation proves U.S. government funded patient zero. So you guys have to check that out. And I am curious to see if that does get us booted off of YouTube. Just mentioning it. I didn't really say anything that controversial. All right. And this is what I was talking about. PBS and NPR called to face the DOGE subcommittee. The subcommittee on delivering on government efficiency subcommittee is planning a hearing on federally funded radio and television, including its systemically biased content. The subcommittee is concerned by public broadcasting services' blatantly ideological and partisan coverage and looks forward to your participation in our upcoming hearing. The subcommittee seeks to better understand PBS's position on providing Americans with accurate information. Please provide the subcommittee with your availability to testify at a hearing during the week of Monday, March 3rd, or the week of Monday, March 24th. Recently, PBS implied that Mr. Elon Musk made a fascist salute while addressing an inaugural celebration hours after President Donald Trump was sworn into office. The characterization was clearly false, according to the Anti-Defamation League, a group that focuses on combating anti-Semitism. It seems that he made an awkward gesture, whatever. So this is going to be a hearing, and we'll cover this as long as it's aired live, which I'm sure it will be. Badlands Media will cover it. I personally hope they don't do it the week of March 3rd, because that is the week of our conference in Vegas, which if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, make sure you do so. But yeah, regardless, we'll have this covered. And I think they sent a similar letter to NPR. Yep. Concern with NPR's blatantly ideological and partisan coverage. I hope they shut both of these places down. They need to. It's amazing. But yeah, they're focusing in, guys. The DOGE, it's slow, but they're like saving supposedly billions of dollars a day already. And it's a drop in the bucket when we have a budget like ours. But just in the first 2 weeks, the progress that's been made, it's pretty astounding. But speaking of missing money and sending money places and not necessarily keeping track of it, we had this from Zelensky. Zelensky admitted this in an interview. I'm going to mute it and read what the captions on the screen, because he says it in his language. It's not translated or anything. So for those just listening on podcast or Podbean or whatever, Zelensky, look, when I hear, and I heard before, and today we hear from the United States of America that America gave Ukraine hundreds of billions, 177 to be more precise. That's what the exact figure sounded like, which was supported or voted by the Congress, etc. Look, as the president of a warring country, I tell you, we received just over 75. That is 100 billion of these 177 or 200 some people even say we have never received. And this is important because we are talking about specific things. Because we got it not with money, but with weapons. We got 70-something billion worth of it. There's training, there's additional transport, there are not only prices for weapons. There are humanitarian programs, social, etc. That's USAID. But when they say that Ukraine during the war received $200 billion to support the army, etc., this is not true. I don't know where all this money is. That's interesting. So you could look at that a couple ways. Like you could look at that as him saying, yeah, well, they sent us all this money, but a lot of it was weapons and all these things. We didn't get cash necessarily. Or is he actually just directly saying that there's $100 billion of unaccounted for funds that we sent to Ukraine, which would not surprise me at all. We've seen some of this over the last couple of years. Remember Sam Bankman-Fried? He partnered with Ukraine and donations were going in and they were sending them back, funneling money back into the United States through super PACs and whatnot to our election officials. It's a money laundering scheme, the whole thing. So, yeah, well, curious to see if DOGE gets to the bottom of this. We know Robert Storch, the DOD Inspector General, has been investigating the support and aid we've sent over there. See if we ever get to the bottom of it. This is the other biggie. We talked about this a little bit on Saturday's Power Hour, but another one of the executive orders this is a memorandum. No, it is executive order. He signed this. The fact sheet is on the website, but the actual order is not yet on the website, so I haven't had a chance to actually read through it. But President Trump launches massive 10-to-1 deregulation initiative. I absolutely love this. If you guys remember, back in his first term, he did a 2-for-1. In his first term, President Trump asked the agencies to eliminate 2 regulations for each one new regulation issued. Not only was this 2-for-1 goal achieved, the first Trump administration eliminated 5.5 regulations for every new one regulated or regulation issued. You don't really hear people talking about that. And honestly, I didn't really even notice it. Not many people did. We were still so overregulated. But yeah, Trump signed an executive order or guidance. Any new rule, regulation, or guidance must identify at least 10 existing rules, regulations, or guidance documents to be repealed. And that can make a big impact. Not only is he slashing ridiculous spending, boosting our income through the potential of tariffs, but they're deregulating already unconstitutional stuff. Like all this stuff is unconstitutional in the first place, but he's stripping it away now, getting us down to the bare bones sovereign nation we should have always been before we were hijacked by these people. And there's a nice little 1.7 trillion number for those who love the number 17. All right, let's talk about this story. This was a pretty big story over the weekend as well, and just some of the reaction to this. We have I'll just play this clip.
Happening. It can only be described as the start of a massive, much larger than expected purge at the FBI of FBI agents and officials. Many of them, in one way or another, touched the investigations into Donald Trump. Sources telling NBC News this: the Office of Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bobe asked the FBI for a list of Bureau employees involved in January 6 cases, sparking panic inside the Bureau by people who fear retribution by the Trump administration amidst an ongoing purge of FBI leadership. Meanwhile, my colleague, NBC's Ken Delanian, reports that several top FBI executives were told to resign or be fired, and that the purge includes more than 20 heads of FBI field offices, including those in Miami and Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so a lot of people at the FBI getting cleaned out, and we talked about this the other day too. It's very fitting that this is happening before Kash is actually, voted on and confirmed as the director of the FBI. It gives him a little shielding, narrative shielding, plausible deniability, whatever. Get rid of all the bad people. Don't even give them a chance to subvert, or don't even give the media the opportunity to run with a narrative that this is Kash Patel committing, the political retribution. All this is being done before he even gets in there, and they're going after all the bad apples. And you got to know they've known who these people were from day one. but they're being told to resign. People at the FBI who the weaponization of justice with the J6 stuff. I think it's might even be going back as far as some of the Spygate stuff too. But I cannot wait for Kash Patel to get in there. It's really kind of dumb. Senate, Thune anyway, promised us that they were going to work nonstop until all of Trump's confirmations got put in there. Trump put a note on Truth Social saying that they're just working to stonewall and delay. But we're going to get them. They come back today at 3, I think, the Senate, and I think this week, hopefully, we should have a majority of the rest of at least the big ones that we've been looking to. Kash, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. They should all at least be voted on. I honestly don't even know which way any of these are going to go. There's some people saying, oh, we got the votes. We got the votes for all 3 of them. Some people dooming saying, no, we don't. I have no idea. I'm not even going to speculate. Wouldn't surprise me either way. But I do think these are the 3 people that if Trump wants them, he's going to make sure he gets them. If for some reason there's a vote that doesn't go his way, I do think he will pull the recess appointment rug pull. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to do things that the media is going to cry about. You know what I mean? He's no longer doing things. And this is what's so different about this term from the first term. The first term, Trump still had to maintain the support of the public while operating in a hostile media. That's what was so difficult for him, because he needed to win that election, the 2020 election. So he still had to be political and operate within the battle space presented by the leftist media. But this time around, not only is the media much more irrelevant, not only does he have the support of the country by a large majority, but he doesn't care. Like he's not running for re-election again. He's going to rip the Band-Aid off on all the issues that he needs to rip the Band-Aid off on, and let the chips fall where they may. If he knows it's the right thing to do, even if he knows we may suffer a little bit in the short term for it, even if he knows he may give the media some fodder to run with for a little bit, he doesn't care, because in the long term, it's going to make our country better. And so something like a recess appointment, if we don't get a Kash Patel in there, he's not afraid at all to pull that plug and do it. So the people that Trump actually wants in there, whoever it is, I fully anticipate them being in there. Like you look at Matt Gaetz, the way that went down, and he ended up withdrawing and getting out of there. Maybe Trump didn't want Matt Gaetz in there in the first place. And now we got Pam Bondi, who doesn't believe the election was legitimate in 2020. Just like all of the rest of Trump's cabinet picks this time around, which is money. But again, if Trump wants him in office or as a cabinet official in his cabinet, Trump is going to get them in his cabinet one way or the other. He's not going to let Congress, an illegitimate Congress at that, stonewall him. There was this letter from Norm Eisen. For those who aren't familiar with Norm Eisen, he's the guy who wrote the Democracy Playbook, Preventing and Reversing Democratic Backsliding, like a literal color revolution playbook that was implemented here in 2020 as ties to the Transition Integrity Project, who had the 4 scenarios from the 2020 election, all resulting in Trump being removed from office. He was also one of the guys who basically is the author of all the lawsuits, all the lawfare against Trump these last few years. But his State Democracy Defenders Fund wrote a letter about these FBI firings. We write to you to express our grave concerns about the terminations of career U.S. Department of Justice prosecutors and FBI agents that have already occurred, including and with respect to personnel actions that are said to be scheduled to occur as early as tomorrow, February 3rd. So I wonder if we're going to see a lot more today. Credible reports indicate that the FBI has been directed to systematically terminate all Bureau employees who had any involvement in certain investigations related to President Donald Trump. I love this. I love that Trump is doing this. And I also love that all the worst people are freaking out over it, including Norm Eisen. I would not be surprised to see Norm Eisen charged with something like an actual crime, because this guy is like deep state as it gets. I think he was law school classmates with Barack Obama, but he's at the center of every major anti-Trump narrative or anything since 2017. I'm pretty sure Norm Eisen was the guy who wrote the first impeachment back in after the election, 2016. Norm Eisen wrote an article, an op-ed about why we need to start drawing up impeachment papers for Trump before he even took office. And he was also part of the impeachment against Trump. So yeah, freaking out about it. Love it. Love to see it. I think that's all the politics stuff I had. But I have a couple other things before we get you out of here. I'm going to refresh the White House website. Nothing new, so I'll keep you posted on that. Yes, I love sports. I don't talk about it. The show is mostly not sports stuff. But I did want to address one thing. I don't watch the NBA, but I did see this trade that came through. I don't know if anybody cares. It's fine. I hate watching the NBA. But I see a lot of people freaking out over this trade, right? So Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, there was a trade. And for those who don't know, Anthony Davis is kind of old, like 32 years old. He's good. He's probably like top 50 player in the league, whatever. Luka is maybe top 2, maybe even the best. Like, he's insanely talented. He's young. This caught everybody off guard. They traded the best player in the league pretty much to the Lakers for an old guy who gets injured a lot and one first round draft pick. Everybody's freaking out. Why they do this? Why they do this? Why they do this? The logical explanation that nobody's talking about is he's about to be a free agent, guys. And what if he didn't sign with them next year again? What if they already knew that he wasn't going to sign again? And so you trade him, get at least something for him when you're going to lose him next year anyway. But just want to throw that out there. Maybe someday we'll get more. If there's an interesting sports stuff, maybe after the Super Bowl, we'll talk more sports. But I grew up on sports, guys. I grew up watching sports. I don't watch it as much as I used to. I could talk sports for days. Love sports, but politics are also very interesting. Okay, I don't know how many of you guys watched the Grammys. I did not. I think I saw their ratings were like super, super down, and it could care less about any of this stuff. Hollywood is essentially the weird uncle that comes to the family gatherings that you almost forget you have. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. And he just shows up, super creepy. Back in your mind, you probably think he's a pedophile or something, and that's what Hollywood is. Like, nobody really cares about him anymore. The Grammys last night, Kanye West shows up with his wife, and she is completely naked. I have this, not showing the full, but like you can actually see it all. And she just showed up like this, like took off her coat, was wearing this. And there's a picture on here where you see a kid like peeking around the corner looking at this. I made a comment. Everybody's on Twitter like freaking out about Elon Musk needs to get rid of the porn on this platform, but then all those same people are sharing this picture around. And I think it was I can't remember who it was. Was it Jackie who gave me shit and dang it, well, I'm not gonna swear, sorry. Gave me crap about posting this. Like, you just don't know fashion, John. But legit, like if I showed up wearing this where you could see everything, I would go to jail. I would be on a sex offenders list, and that'd be that. But she shows up and does it. Nobody shares. Nobody cares. It's art. We're just sharing art around. This is art. But like, why do these things? Are they that desperate for attention? I don't get it. But yeah, so that's that's Hollywood, the state of Hollywood right now. People showing up naked to their award season. But I have no idea who won any of the awards, or don't even know how any of that works. So that's that. All right. That's everything, guys. 50 minutes. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. Make sure you guys are following on YouTube. The Substack, I got my producer starting tomorrow, I believe. And so she's going to help. We'll get the Substack put together with the show notes, so you can follow along to all the stories that we go through. And that'll be put out starting this week. So make sure you guys are following over there. That's dailyherold.substack.com. On YouTube, we're youtube.com/@TDHerold. And yeah, don't forget our email address, daily@badlandsmedia.org. If you guys have any suggestions or guests or anything, tips, thoughts, I'm an open book. I want to make this show a show that you would be willing to share to your friends. So if there's certain things that need to do better or differently, let me know. Totally appreciate the feedback. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your week. I will see you. I'm going to be on Ghost Show tonight, the story of Trump, or the book of Trump. And we got Basis Conspiracies tonight. So you'll see me a lot today. But yeah, Catch you guys later.
Let's get started.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me?
All right. As always, I come back after that. That's just, we clip it out for the podcast, which, if you didn't know, we are on Podbean. We're somehow a top 100 Podbean channel. I had no idea. So I just found that out the other day because we never really talk about it. But we do have podcasts. We upload all of our shows to podcast format for your convenience. We get like average 50,000 some downloads a week. It's just nuts. But anyway, come back and read the rants. So I'm going to do that real quick. 12 Indie Boy. Nice to see you, Ty. Watching in the office today, sharing the Daily Herold to anyone that asks what I'm watching. Let's go. By the way, did you see VP visit East Palestine, Ohio? Donald J. Trump taking care of America first. I did see that. I was going to talk about it, but I decided not to. Maybe I'll throw that in tomorrow. And then Old School 69. Hey, John, how long will it take for Trump to bring prices down? Food, gas, as they are going up now due to tariffs. Also, I live in Connecticut, and electricity, which comes from Canada, is ridiculous expensive. Why are you guys getting energy from Canada? That seems weird. And then also, I have no idea about the prices, and it can't be due to the tariffs because none of them have actually gone into effect. I can't imagine we would have, even the China ones. I think there's still a couple day buffer before the new goods that are being shipped here are actually affected by those prices. The one with Mexico was just put on pause. I wouldn't be surprised if after the 3 p.m. call today with Trudeau, the same thing happens in Canada, backs down. So we'll see. But anyway, thanks everybody. That's all I got. You guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, and tonight on the 2 shows I'm on. Goodbye.